Glass Onion, sequel to Knives Out, previous installment to Wake Up Dead Man, the middle child of the franchise that provided Daniel Craig deliverance from James Bond. Now that we're closing in on the next A Knives Out mystery, I think it's time that we finally sit down, look back, and ask ourselves, was Glass Onion bad? After a brief theatrical run, Glass Onion was shafted onto Netflix because the film industry is dead and we haven't worked out who killed it yet. That's a murder mystery joke. Anyway, the point is that I had to watch this film twice in quick succession. Once at the cinema with a friend and once on Netflix with my family. The first time in the cinema, I thought it was pretty good, but by the second watch, pretty good, it turned into kind of bad, and it didn't get better from there. The more I thought about it, the more angry and frustrated I got. I was ready to write Rian Johnson and the Knives Out mystery franchise off altogether, but recently I've been thinking, maybe I was too harsh. Maybe something about going from watching it on a big screen to watching it on streaming affected my judgment. Maybe I just wasn't ready for something so different to Knives Out and my hatred was premature. So with an open heart, I rewatched Glass Onion for the first time in over a year and a half. And I still didn't like it. Being as charitable as possible, even if we write my reaction off, my friend I watched it with in the cinema rewatched it with me, and he also thought it was bad. So clearly this isn't my fault. There is something wrong with this film, despite it having all the elements of a good movie. And by all the elements of a good movie, I mean Edward Norton was in it. Also, I trust Rian Johnson. I'm not really sure why I trust Rian Johnson. He hasn't given me much reason to. But I don't think he'd make a bad film out of a lack of care or skill. I think he put a lot into Glass Onion, and if I'm going to be mean about it, then I at least want to be thorough and accurate. Out of respect. And also because I need to justify the 7 hours I have now spent watching fucking Glass Onion. I thought about just outright banning myself from talking about Knives Out in this so that I could avoid criticizing Glass Onion by just saying it's not Knives Out, which is an unfair critique because this is a flaw that almost every movie has. I will shut down all Knives Out talk later when we properly get into Glass Onion, but I think for now it's important to establish why and where Knives Out does and doesn't work, just as a baseline for what a good murder mystery film is. And also because I feel bad about the things I'm going to say, and I have to be nice first so that I don't come across as a joyless asshole. So let's start with the characters. Unlike the sequel, Benoit Blanc isn't the protagonist of this film. He's vital for sure, but he's not who the film is following. Instead, we follow Marta. She was the nurse and best friend of this old guy who was killed. I don't have time to recap all of Knives Out, so if you haven't seen it, please bear with me. Also, why are you watching this? Marta is a really great kind of everyman figure in this film. She's a working class immigrant who likes board games and can't lie. She's smart and she's good at what she does, and she's really great at dealing with annoying rich people. The Thrombies are where Knives Out really shines, in my opinion. They're all distinct but similar, and they all have the same goal. Get to the inheritance from Harlan, the eponymous old guy. What's really great is that none of them go about this in a particularly aggressive way. They're all good people. They're just being reasonable, really. I mean, he was their father and Marta's just the nurse, so actually if you think... But joking aside, the point is they aren't quite cartoonish in their greed. They truly do believe that they're being reasonable. Some of them even have good intentions and are doing liberal arts degrees. They work as antagonists because you probably know people who act a bit like this, which makes them all the more annoying and makes the class commentary surrounding them all the more engaging. The Thrombies are self-serving above anything else, and they're kind of likable in a Succession love-to-hate-them sort of way. What a great cast for a super normal murder mystery. But no, I lied. This murder mystery isn't normal. It's weird. There are better videos than this one that get really into why the twist in Knives Out works, so I'm gonna speed through this a bit. The killer in this murder mystery is revealed within the first 40 minutes. And it's not even a murder, it was an accident. Technically, Harlan Thrombey died by suicide. Anyway, the rest of the film is about Marta trying to cover her tracks, until it becomes about finding the real killer again in the end. What's great is that none of that feels out of pocket, and I think it's because the audience pretty much always knows the same amount as Marta. Other than the very beginning, we have as much information as Marta does. The initial reveal doesn't even really feel like a twist. It's just the setup. I mean, it happens like half an hour in. All of the information and goal changes that follow, we get from Marta's perspective. It's all on one timeline that we follow along with the characters. Sure, there are flashbacks, but even then, the flashbacks are just visual depictions of the stories that each of the characters are telling Benoit. We don't find this stuff out through Marta because she was there and already knows most of it. The flashbacks at the start are pretty much just filling us in on the necessary background needed to pick up Marta POV. Everything we find out in this film is either something Marta already knows from before the plot of the film, or something that we find out at the same time as Marta. I don't have a good segue here, but I'm gonna just quickly talk about the politics in Knives Out. Everything feeds back into the central theme of exploring the discrimination that immigrants from South America face in the US. People call this an Eat the Rich film, but that kind of softens the message. Yeah, the rich people in the film suck, but it's not a film about how rich people suck. It's a film, more specifically, about how Hispanics aren't treated very well by rich white Americans. Throughout the film, we see the different ways that the Thrombies are racist to Marta, and all of that builds to the glorious final shot. These people don't even think she should be in the country, but she is in the country. Also, your dad just gave her your house. Fuck you. There's great cohesion here. Everything feels like it meets at one point in a nice way. I wonder if the same thing happens in Glass Onion. We'll get to that. First, I want to talk a bit more about murder mystery twists. Primal Fear. Is it obvious that I'm a big Edward Norton fan yet? Primal Fear may not appear to be a murder mystery at first glance, but it's actually structured pretty similarly to Knives Out, in that they're both films about solving a murder with two twists, where the second one kind of recontextualizes how we thought about the first one. We don't follow the prospective killer in Knives Out, but instead his lawyer. The answer to every question posed, we learn along with the protagonist, played by Richard Gere. A twist happens, and Richard Gere's goal changes. We follow him through this. I know that film is like 22 years old, but I'm really doing my best not to spoil it right now, so again, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry. Also, please watch Primal Fear. The point is, I showed this film to the same friend I watched Glass Onion with recently, and he guessed both twists before they happened, which is the sign of a good twist. I know generally the idea is that a twist should be shocking, but too often what happens is that people go for the highest possible shock value and forget that a twist also has to make sense. This happens roughly every 5 minutes in the Now You See Me films, for example, but they get a pass because those movies aren't even pretending to make sense. Particularly the second twist in Knives Out, you can absolutely piece together on your own. In fact, I'd say that's part of the fun with a murder mystery. You get to work out exactly what happened as the detective does. That's kind of the fun of any twist. You can do that with Knives Out and Primal Fear because you're given all of the same clues as the characters who eventually solve the mysteries. I wonder if Glass Onion... A lot of slasher films are also essentially murder mysteries, but rather than one murder, you're trying to solve several that all have the same answer. Slashers also generally follow a prospective character who is given the same information as the audience. This is pretty much always the eventual final girl. Sydney in Scream, for example. She can't witness any of the murders until the final act, because then she'd have the answer to who the murderer is, and then we'd have the answer to who the murderer is, and the audience participation guessing game part of the film would be over. This is a tried and tested method of storytelling, Ryan, and I can't name any murder mystery, or hell, even just mystery films that don't at least loosely follow this model. I wonder if... Okay, really quickly I'm gonna recap Glass Onion. By really quickly, I mean this is almost a full page of my script. This group of old friends all get a puzzle box which they solve together over the phone and find inside an invite to a weekend on a Greek island with their buddy Miles Braun, who is planning a murder mystery party. Benoit Blanc also ends up with a box, but when he shows up it's clear that that was some sort of mistake. Also, this woman called Andy shows up, and she's Miles' old business partner whose idea for a clean energy source he stole, proceeding to oust her from the business when she tried to tell him that it was lethally flammable. Everyone gets to the island, and then they sort of just hang out for 40 minutes of runtime until they get to dinner, and Benoit ruins the mystery game by revealing the killer's identity before the game even starts. He then takes Miles aside and tells him that someone probably wants to kill him, then Dave Bautista is killed via poisoning. Dave Bautista doesn't play Miles, by the way. He's a different character. Also, Andy gets shot outside. Okay, so Benoit says he knows who killed her, and then we go into a flashback. We are an hour into the film. At this point, it's revealed that Andy isn't Andy, but her twin sister Helen, who found her dead in her house after Andy threatened Miles with proof that she came up with this new kind of energy that Miles invented and is trying to launch soon. So, because she came up with it, she has proof that she did that, so then Miles wouldn't be able to launch it, I think. Okay, so Helen finds Benoit Blanc and brings him the invitation to the murder mystery trip that was meant to go to her sister. She found the buzzer box in her sister's house, by the way. She didn't solve it. She smashed it with a hammer, and she took out the invitation. So that's how she has the invitation. It was her sister's invitation that was sent to Andy, but Helen has it. She's in her house. Now Benoit has it. So she asks Benoit to help her work out who killed her sister, because he's the world's greatest detective. Sorry, Batman. He decides that they should both go to the island to meet the potential killers. So we see all the scenes from the first 40 minutes of hanging out again, this time from Helen POV, and find out that she didn't get shot because this tiny book protected her, and Benoit went along with this to give her time to find the incriminating envelope, which has Andy's business secrets that she was going to destroy Miles with. There's a red envelope with the proof that Andy invented the technology. Please follow me. The envelope was given to Miles by the killer because all of his friends are in some way financially supported by him and want him to stay in business so that they stay in business, and this is why they might have killed Andy. I probably should have said that earlier, but it's fine. We're in it now. Okay, so now we're back out of the flashback stuff, and Benoit reveals that Miles killed Andy because he's an idiot and the most obvious choice. Also, Dave Bautista saw him driving to Andy's house first. They all went to Andy's house also, after she threatened them, which is when they would have had the opportunity to kill her. So that's why Dave Bautista was killed. I think I've explained this in a bad order, which is weird because I'm just going through it beat by beat. So also Miles was the one who took the envelope with the incriminating information, and that's how he has it now. Okay. Then Helen comes down with the envelope. She was in the Glass Onion, which is a big CGI dome on top of the building. It's not important, but it's where Miles was keeping the envelope. So Miles had the envelope, put it in the Glass Onion. Helen used she got shot, distraction time, to go get it. She has it now. She brings it down, and Miles burns it. Helen then uses Miles' new shitty energy source to burn the Mona Lisa. He has the original Mona Lisa in his house. Don't worry about it. Helen burns it, ensuring that the energy source thing will be too famously volatile to ever be commercially successful, and then the film ends. Okay, now back to why it's bad. The prospective character in Glass Onion is Benoit Blanc. The first scene where they're all opening the box together is information he doesn't have, but whatever, that's just the setup. The first hour of the film we see what he sees, and also some extra stuff that we wouldn't see, but primarily we have the same information as Benoit Blanc. So we could probably solve the murder along with him. The problem is that we don't know what murder we're trying to solve until over an hour into the film. Actually, there isn't a murder in the first hour of the film. There are no murders in the first hour of a murder mystery movie. I mean, chronologically, the important murder has already happened, but we don't know that until the flashback, so I don't really think that counts. The flashback is kind of just a 40-minute break in the story to explain that a bunch of stuff happened between the first scene and the rest of the movie that we weren't shown for, some reason. Benoit Blanc actually knew way more than we were shown him knowing, including who was killed. I'm sorry, but who is this fun for? I don't think who got killed is supposed to be the mystery in a murder mystery. By the time we actually know what the hell has happened, Benoit Blanc has already solved the mystery. Let's just think about that again. Benoit Blanc, the prospective character, solves the murder before we know who's dead. This isn't very good, I would say. It kind of feels like it was done to cover up the mystery itself being sort of convoluted if you think about it too hard. The solving the murder mystery part of this film takes half an hour, and is done in flashbacks, showing clues that we couldn't have possibly pieced together, because half of them we didn't have the context to understand, and the other half we weren't shown. I mean, what the hell? It's like they're trying to get it out of the way. Like it's an embarrassing little side plot and not, I don't know, the point and genre of the movie. The weird thing is that this wouldn't even be a problem if they just ordered the scenes chronologically. It's not my place to say, but I think what happened here is that they realized they only had one twist in the movie, which wasn't even really a twist, and decided to reorder some stuff to inorganically create a second one. This doesn't work because it's not subverting genre tropes in an interesting way. It's just being a twist for the sake of a twist. Plus, it unintentionally renders the first hour of the film kind of pointless. Also, it takes an hour. That's too long, I'm sorry. You could cut almost all of that first hour and the film would functionally be exactly the same. There's so much random bloat in this movie. Again, there's just 40 minutes of people hanging out. And the 40 minutes after that is basically just repeating scenes from the first 40 minutes, but giving you information that you probably should have had in the first place. What is that first 40 minutes even for? Introducing the characters? Then what is the opening for? Hey, and while we're here, let's talk about the characters. They're quite boring. Everyone here feels like a caricature, other than Lionel, who feels like, I don't know, nothing. I can't name a single personality trait this guy has, and I watched the film 2 days ago. He's a scientist, I guess. That's literally all I know about him. Beck is kind of interesting, but she's attached to this very basic, borderline misogynistic on the film's part, pop star character, who the film wants to criticize for being rich and stupid, but who's also let off the hook for the worst thing she does. It's sweatshops, by the way. She had a line of sweatpants that were made in sweatshops. It's not her fault, though. She just thought that a sweatshop is where sweatpants were made. How am I supposed to feel about Birdie J? I don't know, and I don't think Glass Onion knows. Actually, I don't even think it's interested in the question. There's also Dave Bautista playing the alpha male YouTube star with a controversially young and beautiful girlfriend that the film wants to respect, but it can't really level that respect with its bigger want to use her as a sexual object most of the time. I don't really think it's good feminism to take a female character whose only purpose in the plot is to be subservient to and have sex with men and say that that's okay because she's smart, actually. That's not even lampshading the problem. I truly think no one making this film understands the misogynistic undertones of that. Not a great look, I would say. Kathryn Hahn was in the film. I have nothing to say about her character, and I already forgot her name. I also don't want to be mean here, but I don't think she is doing a great job. And of course, let's not forget Miles Braun, Edward Norton's character. It brings me so much pain and sadness to say this. I would never want to take a job from him. I don't think Edward Norton is a good pick for this role. The thing is that Edward Norton is a really excellent actor who can portray such incredible depth of character. Even in films that aren't very good, he's almost always the best part. I can say this because I've watched a frankly unreasonable amount of Edward Norton movies. The thing with Miles Braun is that he is intentionally depthless. He's purposefully just an idiot and don't think about it further than that. Edward Norton can do this, of course, but it's a little insulting to watch when you know that so much talent is being wasted by making him give a performance that is, by design, uninteresting. There's also, of course, Andy and Helen. Andy's a weird one because she's kind of considered the hero, I guess. The film certainly treats her as such. But then why is the only thing we know about her that she spends all of her time hanging out with people who the film wants us to think are terrible? If she's so smart and cool, then why did she start a business with irredeemable asshole idiot Miles Braun? The film implies that she took pity on some sad weirdo and told everyone to give him a chance. But that doesn't make any sense. Why would she do that? We've been shown no redeeming qualities from Miles that would make her want to give him a chance. Because if we did, then the whole "he's an idiot" speech doesn't work. But having no redeeming qualities means that Andy being in business with him in the first place doesn't work. None of it works. Ryan, you've trapped yourself in a writing hell of your own creation. And about Helen, because we don't know that she's Helen and she spends almost all of her screen time looking and behaving like her sister, we don't actually know anything about Helen. Who is Helen? I don't know. She's a teacher and she isn't rich. This is everything I have. What her relationship with her sister was like, how she's grieving her, what their family life is like. We don't know any of that. And I think we should probably know at least some of it. What this results in is that we don't really know anything about either of these women. Which isn't good, because they're the heart of the story. The thing is that all of this might be a little more excusable if it felt like it was in service of anything. The political commentary in this film is unfocused at best. All of the characters are rich. Miles Braun is super rich, and super obviously a stand-in for Elon Musk. The thing is, saying that Elon Musk is an idiot isn't really enough of a theme to make a film about. I know he's an idiot. We all know he's an idiot. He's not even an idiot in an interesting way. The men's rights activist guy could actually be an interesting and impactful thing to explore in a nuanced way, but they exclusively use the side of his character for cheap jokes, which honestly ends up feeling like they're downplaying the very serious problem that men like him represent. It's simply not very funny to laugh at a man spouting incel cult rhetoric. Like, he does die, I will give the film credit for that. But it's a little irresponsible to not present a meaningful counter to what he's saying, and make him, in the end, look like a harmless idiot. Also, I think his girlfriend doesn't need to be sad that he died, actually. This is a little gross to me. Birdie J is, I guess, an indictment of stupid capitalistic pop stars, but again, it lets her off the hook by saying that she had her merch made by sweatshops because she simply didn't know what a sweatshop is, kind of nullifying any real commentary they could have had with that. She's kind of just a nothing of a character, politically speaking. Her and Lionel feel like two ends of a no-character spectrum, in that Birdie is a superficial and failed attempt at constructing character, and I don't think they're really trying to do anything with Lionel. If they are, I have no idea what it is. This is me saying I'm skipping Lionel in this section. I can't work out what the politics around him are even supposed to be. Maybe there aren't any, which is fine, but it makes it a little confusing why he's here. Catherine Hahn is a politician and her campaign is funded by Miles, so she doesn't want to do policy against him. Also, I don't know what her policy is. Is she right-wing? I don't know. They don't explain this. I'm not kidding. I don't know why you would make a character a politician if you aren't going to talk about their political beliefs. But, well, that's what Glass Onion did. There might be, in the very brief little newsreel segment, something about what she's doing, and I accept this, but that not being in any way immediately obvious to me, I think is bad and means that criticism stands. So, I'm sorry, but that's simply the take you are gonna have to be left with. So the film clearly wants to be political and say rich people are bad, but it shies away from actually explaining how these rich people are bad. There's a lot of directions for political commentary that are introduced, but Glass Onion doesn't want to look at any of that. They'd rather just say something vague about how we should eat the rich because, they're stupid. But the rich people like Andy who are smart are okay, actually. We don't need to get rid of the system. We just need to have better people at the top of the system. The system is fine. Even if you give it a really charitable read and say that it does explore all of these things in a way that doesn't boil it all down to indecisive centrist slop, it makes no attempt to connect them to one thing. There's no clear thematic through line that makes sense here. Dumb billionaire bad is not a good answer to this, by the way. I'm sorry, but I can't allow us to say that that's the through line, because then we're back into centrist slop territory. Politically, the film either lacks cohesion or it lacks conviction, and that's about the best read I can give it, I'm afraid. This kind of explains the ending of the film being weird and confusing. Miles Braun's dumb glass dome thing is blown up and all of his friends have now decided to side with Helen, because Miles' career is ruined anyway. And don't worry, they didn't like him in the first place. This puts those characters in an odd position where they get this triumphant moment of standing up to the big guy. But why do they get that? Aren't we supposed to think these people are bad? I guess in the end, the real villain was just the richest guy in the room and everyone else is off the hook. Again, this is pretty much just centrist slop. The ending makes sense narratively, but it kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth. I don't want those guys to win. I've just spent a whole movie learning about how they suck. And look, all of this might be a bit more forgivable if Glass Onion looked good. The problem is that Glass Onion is an ugly movie. I need you to look at this shot of Daniel Craig. He's being backlit here. In fact, he's being backlit most of the film. This is, I'm sure, meaningful in some way, and I would probably like it if it didn't make him look insane. Like, really look at this. I've seen Daniel Craig before. This is not what he looks like. Why is his face so red? Why are his eyes so glossy? Is he blonde now? What did they do to him? They do the same thing with Edward Norton, which is almost as unforgivable to me as the centrist slop stuff. I get that it was COVID and filming maybe wasn't as easy, but why is the lighting in this scene so weirdly and obviously digital? What is happening with the background here? I get the metaphor with the Glass Onion, but its big CGI dome equivalent doesn't need to be there if it's going to look like this in every shot. Also, they don't need to tell me what the metaphor is. This is actually nitpicking now, but why have Daniel Craig turn to the audience and tell us what the Glass Onion represents? Also, the lighting and blocking makes looking at this room uncomfortable. If that's intentional, then I honestly don't know why. Also, most of the scenes in this are just shot reverse shot conversations, which is fine, but it's boring, and Ryan, I know you can do really fun and innovative stuff with your directing. Why didn't you put that into this movie? Maybe the real murder mystery was the mystery of who killed Rian Johnson's directorial swag. Again, this was filmed during COVID, so that might be a limitation, but speaking of COVID, why are we talking about COVID in this film? This is another nitpick, but if you're gonna waste several minutes explaining COVID away, then just don't write it in. Plenty of films and shows made in the past few years have done this. I promise you no one is going to be angry if you don't talk about the pandemic that none of us want to talk about, because it literally just happened. Okay, look, there are a lot of really fun scenes in Glass Onion, and it was clearly made with a lot of love and respect. And it's because I have so much respect for the people making these that I'm being so critical. I think the idea of a politically charged murder mystery franchise led by Daniel Craig playing a gay PI with a silly accent is one of the most wonderful things in the world. And I hope Rian Johnson gets to keep making them forever. I'm not criticizing Glass Onion to be mean. I'm doing it because I know that it was made as a venture of love, and that it really could have been excellent. And maybe if we're all honest about this film not being the best, then the next one will be. Wake Up Dead Man will come out in 2025. It has a pretty promising cast if you don't know who Jeremy Renner is and don't know who Mila Kunis is friends with. And I hope that Ryan and the team will learn from Glass Onion and make a really great movie. And if they make another bad movie, then I'll still watch it, and I'll probably enjoy it. And if I don't, then I'll at least enjoy making fun of it with my friends. Either way, I would rather they make a bad film than not try to make a film at all. I would also rather they got full theatrical releases, because that was really the only way I found watching Glass Onion tolerable. Okay. I'm sorry for being a joyless asshole. Here's to Wake Up Dead Man being good. I hope. Can't get the straw.